In this video, we're going to be making a portable, powerful Bluetooth speaker out of DIY stuff that you may have knocking around or not. Let's roll the intro and get to it. So we've got an old Gale surround speaker from an old 5.1 system and a small, tiny amplifier. I'm going to try and put them all together to make a portable Bluetooth speaker for the van. So just stripping the unit down, you can see there's two holes where the drivers were and this centre crossover which looks to be powered as well. So stripping all that, I'm going to see if I can actually fit the amplifier inside of the box now. And using the amplifier as a guide, what I've done is just mark out a rough area where I'm going to need to cut away to fit the amplifier inside of the box itself. Now I'm going to go conservative first of all because I don't want it to be too loose. So to mark the edge up now with my multi-tool with the plunge bit on, I'm going to change the jigsaw now because the wood or MDF, whatever it is quite thick. It's actually, you see how thick it is there. It's quite difficult to cut all the way through with the plunge saw, so I'm going to switch to the jigsaw. So with a small bit of extra clearance in, you can see that's actually going to sit in there quite nice. Now there will be other stuff that's going to get in the way in the front side with the drivers and all, but we'll deal with that in a minute. But it's in the hole. I think that trimmed up with a nice piece of gasket or something and cleaned up would look, but it's in the hole, so that's a good start. So we'll see what's next. Now this edge is where the mains power came out. I've had to detach that and just tuck it up inside the unit. One, because I'm not being used it, or I won't be using it, and two, it's just fouling one of the drivers when I put it back in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this corner of the case away just to clearance that so I can all go back together properly. Right, so we managed to get the unit sitting pretty much flush inside of the speaker. So now we're going to turn our attention to fitting everything back on the inside. I'll just spin it around a moment. You can see now inside the unit we should have enough room for the driver that side. The crossover I think is going to be a bit more challenging, so I'm going to have to look at that. I still need to fit the battery somewhere and connect up all the speaker cables themselves. So fingers crossed, be able to get it all in there. Okay, so with all the holes cut out now, I've just cut a hole at the back for the DC charging socket. I need to get all the bits and sawdust and rubbish outside of the box, and then what I'm going to do is silicone in the bits and pieces that need to be in there and then let that dry before I carry on. Okay, I'm going to have to make a few more modifications. Just going to point out the little DC jack at the back of the unit, which I intended to plug my battery in to. The problem is there's not quite enough clearance to the front of the unit, or front of the speaker box, when you plug the jack into there, into the DC socket, should I say. So I've had a quick look and I've just made a couple of modifications and testing. What I'm pointing to now is a 220 to 40 volt transformer, because this came with a bit optional to plug into the UK mains as well. So that electricity would come in from the house or your normal home supply and then get converted by this transformer into 12 volts. You can see where I've cut these two blue cables. Those are the output cables for the transformer. They supply 12 volts down onto the motherboard into this little socket. Sorry if it's not focusing correctly. So with that in mind, I've just snipped these, bared the ends, and just tested it with my 12 volt portable jump start pack, and it works that you can supply 12 volts directly to the amplifier board using these two which means I can eliminate all of this out of the case, which is just extra space I'm gaining. The other thing I did notice is when you use the DC jack, it powers up all the time, which is not desirable for us. The on-off switch at the front of the case, which goes back where my finger's pointing now, that's really just for the 240. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this out, utilize that for the 12-volt connection, so when I do turn it on and off, it will not just keep draining the battery. So I've tested that, so that's the next thing. I'm going to try and figure a way to do that nice and tidy. So going back to the DC jack problem, you would have seen earlier on that I isolated and discovered that these two wires were feeding power straight from the transformer into the board, which powers the unit up fine. So all I've done here is just make a really simple circuit. Now I'm going to go back to the battery. I've got the battery plugged in to a female socket. You're taking the live and feeding it into the bottom of this switch. It then, when the rocker switch is in the on position, it feeds the power back out and into the relevant blue cable on the motherboard, which makes it turn it off. So long and short of that is basically it's a real simple circuit, but that just means it's going to allow me to actually switch off the unit when it's not in use. Whereas prior to that, if you used it in the DC socket, that wasn't available. That switch was only functioning on the 240 side or the mains electricity side, which we've removed. So just to go and show you that works. So unit's in the off position, switch it to the on position, and she's all lit up ready to go. So next phase, I just made a little charging tail for this. Now this adapter here, or the female adapter, is going to sit in here. So I've tidied that up, and that'll be where you'll plug in to charge the unit up, and then of course that'll be attached to the what we're using as the input side of the battery. It's a bit messy, and I've had to take the edges there because there's not a lot of room to work, and I haven't really got fine soldering equipment, but it'll do because it'll be hidden away. Okay, so I've glued the battery in place. Bit of hot glue gun, trying to get good focus there. You can see the charge cable now ready to be plugged in. I've got to keep everything to the right hand side so I don't interfere with any of the drivers. So that's now stuck there good. Got the two in and out cables, which I'll be plugging in a minute. Hopefully everything still fits together. Oh, and also we've now got the speaker outputs, or the amplified outputs, coming out. I put them into the standard crossover. I'm going to be wrapping that and then trying to stick that somewhere in the case as well. Perhaps in some foam or something to stop it rattling about. But I wanted to retain that because it's got a built-in crossover. It's going to drive the little dome tweeter, which should be able to go back in this hole fine. So the unit's now inside of the speaker box. You can see just about, I think, I've plugged in the power to the unit from the battery, and also the front charge jack up there. I let a bit of slack on these because we're going to need to make sure these stay out of the way of the drivers when we put them back. If we go into the unit itself, you can see the speaker outputs there. They're just hanging out the front at the moment. That's all wrapped in foam ready to go in, and then I'll connect the drivers back up. But we'll spin it around and just make sure everything still works. We'll tidy all this up. You can see there's lots of hot glue everywhere and stuff like that, so I'll give this all clean. But for the most part, what we're looking for is that to work, which it is. So we'll just carry on, see if we can finish this up. Right, so I've just temporarily popped the driver, just connected it up just to make sure it is actually working. So power it up, hopefully it'll be in radio mode. It's in auxiliary, so change it to Bluetooth. You can hear the sound there, which is a good sign. Just change that quickly. That's great, that seems to work. I don't want to play nothing on Bluetooth in case I get copyrighted. But yeah, sound there, so carry on, put the speakers back together. Right, as is the nature of these sort of projects, fit a couple of snags. We're going to have to take a couple of steps back. principally because we're having some clearance issues with the side of this driver, which I didn't have when I first fitted it, but now it's in. But the bigger issue is I tested it out on the bench. Obviously, like I said before, I don't want to put any copyright infringements on, so I've tested it myself, and it just doesn't sound very good. And I suspect it's something to do with the built-in crossover for the centre speaker trying to project the vocal, which is its job in a 5.1. So I'm going to take that out and retry that and see if I can get that clearanced. So I've managed to clearance this corner. As you can see there, I have to take a fair bit of the side out, which isn't a problem necessarily. I've just retest fitted both drivers and they work. So what I've done is also eliminate the crossover, and you can see I've just got the standard stereo cables coming out the end. So what I'm going to do is just I'm going to attach them to the drivers and see if the sound's any better. Okay, so just ran with the unit on top. As you see, just plug the drivers in there, and I think the sound issue's gone away. Obviously it's going to sound much better once I actually screw the drivers back into the unit. So I should be able to do that now pretty successfully. Hopefully I'll give it a go and we'll see where we are afterwards. So all the drivers are now back in place, all screwed in. That's looking good, no more clearance issues there. The good news is, you can see there, it's now charging via the DC input. It'll actually let you use it whilst it is charging as well, which is a bit of a bonus. Just give the top a quick wipe off. Now I've had the addition of this luggage strap, which you can get pretty much anywhere, eBay, Amazon, that sort of thing. Obviously for portability, that sits on top nice. I just need to give the rest of the unit a clean. And if anybody's got an idea how to uncrush these speaker cones in a non-damaging way, then please let me know. I was thinking maybe a Hoover or something like that, but if anybody's got any ideas, put them in the comments please, I'll be grateful. Thank you. So there's still a little bit of tidying up and just finishing off around the edges to do. I got a seal in the unit properly with a bit of gasket or something, which I don't have at the moment, but it's in and functioning, working well, it's charging up now. We'll see if we can give it a demo.
To breathe, but that's alright. Hush. Take my eyes up in the face reality.
So there we have it, the portable, powerful Bluetooth speaker. If you don't have any of the parts already, you could probably build this for £50, £60 or $70 or $80 if you're in the US. It's all pretty straightforward. I'll put some links in the description for bits and bobs that I've used along the way. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.